platform of a data-centric AI development platform. What does that mean is developers can build process data and then build models on top of us. And then the ultimate goal here is to foster an open ecosystem of data sets and models. But a little bit about my personal background. So I did my PhD from UC Berkeley, focused on machine learning and causal inference. And the first startup that AI startup that I did was called .data. That's this like automated machine learning platform 6-7 years ago. So that was the last bull of the AI bull market, and definitely see a lot of hype. We raised a lot of money, and it's become like a lesson about also when it's come to a tipping point where a lot of things cannot go into production. There's no real like a good return on investment, then things will start going down. So as you probably can see right now in the AI, this Gen AI hype, it started getting into this tipping point. But anyways, so our team is a team of, we have about 20-25 people. So we are building, we're coming all pretty much from the AI and big data space. And this is just a quick review about what we have been working with people. So for example, like EigenLayer, if you guys know them, they build all the data infrastructure and so on. And there's a lot of like layer 2 or like Web 2 companies we're working with. So my thoughts about AI in the next few years is we're going to have probably a handful of foundation models, such as like Google Gemini, OpenAI, GPT-4o. Actually, there's going to be a new model released by OpenAI very soon. Actually, just wait for that. GPT-4o right now is kind of not being used often anymore internally because they have a much more powerful model. But the point here is probably there's going to be only like 4 or 5 models, foundation models in the future, just like serving as iOS or like Android system underlying as a very fundamental thing. And then on top of that, there's going to be a lot of like smaller models that's built on top of those foundation model, because the foundation model, one is lack of domain knowledge, and second, it's very heavy, which means if you want to use the model in your like mobile, like iPhone or Samsung, it's going to be very challenging in terms of like the performance and cost. So that's why there's going to be a lot of like smaller, customized derivative models built on top of that. So with that, what does that mean is you would imagine with billions of models and agents help you to operate during those daily business operation, and also like the like a human to agent interaction or agent to agent interaction. You need a systematic way to track 2 things. One is what is those ownership and attribution of those assets during the process will be protected, because as there's going to be multiple stakeholders participating into this process. I know a lot of people, people who just chatter about like a deeping thing, are talking about incentive alignment, about people's data, individuals' data getting exploited. This is not only in the individual level, actually even like a company level, business level, for people who sit on a lot of valuable data, they also have this challenge. How can I monetize those things without being exploited by bigger companies, such as at the time, OpenAI was sued by multiple big medias and also entertainment. There's a reason. So anyways, that's the one thing that needs to be more tracked and protected during the future of AI, with everything automated by the agents and models. And the second piece is, how do you ensure the compute process actually from the data being get the raw data to be transformed into the AI or model ready trained format to a model, and then model be used. How do you guarantee that there's no a temporary or a misbehavior inserted into this process? One example we can imagine is in the future. Actually, right now we are working with a data provider company. They have a lot of pathology data. So what does that mean is, you go to the hospital, do MRI, X-ray, and all this stuff. You will have all those images, and then there's going to be a radiologist that will help you to, review the image and say, oh, there's probably going to be some problem with your liver, or you're basically become for example, cancer diagnosis indicator. So in that case, right now what we are working with the data provider company is to build a cancer diagnosis model. So the ultimate goal here is help patient to like really get some early help from the Gen AI model to tell them if there's some problem about their health. And ideally, you can even give them some recommendation about what type of medicine treatment you need to take. But in that case, you do want to make sure that there's no like bias getting into this monitoring process.
What's the solution from ZettaBlock then?
So later on we can talk about the solution, but the solution here we're proposing is using blockchain as an underlying like a tracking mechanism and verification mechanism to go through, to make sure that the process is trackable and auditable. Auditable means like basically if there's anything you need to do retrospective analysis, then you can. But later on I can show you what does that mean. But anyways, so this is what we think why the AI need to be trustless and need to be, like really, what does that mean is really have a systematic way. So by eliminating like human interaction, have a systematic way to guarantee the prognosis. So let's go back to here. Actually, the initial, the data I want to show is actually a mapping between the trustless or decentralized AI infrastructure and the centralized AI infrastructure. So, but the point here is I want to give you an overview about how this AI process looks like. So in the very beginning, you will see that, okay, we call there's three things in this AI building process. It's like the compute GPU, the data, and the model. And the GPU is apparently just the underlying infrastructure for helping you to get the needed compute resources to train the model or like inference the model. But let's focus on the data and the model today. So how it looks like is you collect the data. And there's many ways to collect the data. In Web2 company, there's like Scale AI, Label Box, and a lot of them. In Web3, some company you probably heard is like Grass or like Masa, some of them, like DP companies, they use hardware to collect all those things, say your watch data for your heart rates and all this stuff. And then once the data has been collected, honestly speaking, this is the step zero of everything. Because you have the raw data, and you have to clean the data, transform the data, and do all the rendering, and even probably extract some insights from the raw data already, to then be using that for the downstream use cases. The basic one is just data analysis, the more advanced one is machine learning, or even like Gen AI model training. And in this process, then you need two things. You need the data storage layer to help you to store the data, and you also need the data to be like a compute, like the transformation part being taken care of, which we call as a data preparation. And then after the data has been prepared, you can start train the model. But like we discussed earlier, we don't think there's going to be many pre-training, use cases happen because pre-training a model, foundation model from scratch will be very expensive. So we would imagine people will just build everything in the future on top of those handful of foundation models. Could be open source, could be closed source. But people will be more focusing on leveraging those base model to then get the customized model for their domain-specific use cases or the task solved. And then once the model has been trained, you can see the model serving an inference layer, which is where you can deploy the model and run the model and then send every single, say prediction data points to the model, and then they give you like the result. So basically, like when you use GPT, ChatGPT, you send them a prompt. That is like for model inference purpose because then the return is coming from the model. And on top of that, you will see a lot of like applications. Those applications can be just leveraging the model directly, or they can wrap an agent on top of the model. So this is just a landscape of the model, of the AI process. And we believe that in order for you to really guarantee what we talked about, the provenance and also the verification capability in the process, you need to start from the more beginning of the process, which means a lot of projects will say that we will do verification, we will do like model financialization and all the stuff once the model is ready. But that is where we think things will be already goes south, and you cannot capture that in the earlier stage. Another problem I want to mention here is I spent a lot of time on data. I can share my personal experience on that. So remember I mentioned the first AI startup I was building is an automated machine learning platform. What does that mean is you basically as a data analyst, for example, or even like someone who don't know how to write code, you just submit the data, and then the platform will you go through a few clicks, and then we will start training hundreds, thousands of models for you. And in the process, we even will do automated feature engineering, which will generate hundreds of millions of features in the process. And then we will do your feature selection, and then model training on top of like a different type of models, neural network, XGBoost, decision tree, logistic, whatever, like from simple to complex. But the problem here is you will realize when you get to really try to build a model, you spend majority of your time in data. Because think about like an automated machine learning, or even like Gen AI, if you do model fine tuning on top of data to add additional context and knowledge into the base model. The model building piece is not that hard. It's really for you to prepare good, high quality, relevant, highly informative data before you put that into the model. So that's why the data preparation piece become actually the real blocker in this process, which means in order to make your life easier to prepare the data, besides just to get the relevant raw data, you need very strong data infrastructure underlying to handle those data. For example, one thing you can see the trend now with especially like Gen AI again, helping you create image, even like automatically generates short film for you. That's what involves a lot of like multimodality data, which means initially, if you think about a lot of model before, it's building on top of just numbers data, like structured data, or semi-structured data like text. Large language model, for example, is built on top of text. But you will see a lot more models built on top of image, audio, video data. That's required you have an infrastructure to be able to handle those things. And then along the way, how you can guarantee the data provenance is another interesting topic. Toby asked like, what's the solution we're proposing here? So basically, we are building a end-to-end AI ops platform that has two components for like the model building and the data preparation side. And besides that, there's a blockchain module that we use to do, again, this provenance tracking and verification. But one thing I do want to emphasize here is a lot of people talk about verification, but I don't think there's going to be short-term that important to mainstream AI people. But helping them to have a better way to do the ownership and attribution tracking so that we can help them to better monetize their data and model, even for enterprise, for businesses, people, that's what will be an interesting thing. So an important thing. So what does this whole process look like is once the data goes into this data module, and as you can see later on, I can show you what this data module really look like. You will have like the solutions to help you to handle like a large scale historical data for like a batch purpose, but you're also going to have like a streaming architecture to help you to handle the real-time need. So for example, again, if you are sending ChatGPT a prompt and they immediately respond the answer to you, that is because underlying they have a streaming real-time data architecture so that the model can return those things very quickly. And then once the data has been processed, and vector DB apparently a lot of people probably heard is for a model inference purpose, and they can add additional knowledge into this database. And once the data has been prepared, then it can go to the module for like model training or like model distillation, a lot of different ways to build a model. But the whole process, like we discussed, will be having like the process tracked, and if you want, optionally, you can verify the process. So we probably can just dive into what we think like the ecosystem will be look like in the future. So basically, we think this AI network will have data providers. We talked about like the methodology data provider, and also like a lot of we work with entertainment company to provide their data. And GPU providers, I know that's the founder from Exhibit will give another talk later on. So they will be more of an example of compute provider. But again, there's a lot of compute providers in Web2 as well, such as like we've heard about AWS GCP, and also there's like a Lambda Labs, and so on and so forth. And there's going to be a few base model providers. And once all the things has been built, then you can see that there's like agent apps can leverage the model, and we can also make the smart contracts from on-chain to call the model directly, which means you can actually bring the model capability to blockchain. So this is just some use cases about how you would see in the future AI will empower. Honestly, I do think in the next 2-3 years, we'll see a lot more use cases or a lot more fundamental user experience being changed and automated by agents and models. So this is just one example we had with OpenZeppelin. They built over 400 on-chain risk detection bots on top of ZettaBlock for using our platform to process the historical blockchain data, real-time blockchain data, and train machine learning models on top. That's all. If you are interested in chatting more, just go to find me. I'll stay here for a few minutes. Thank you.